Good evening, everybody, ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, and a very warm welcome to Schader Foundation. Very warm welcome. Tonight, we would like to be part of the plus that the Alliance EUt Plus is striving for. But first of all, we are grateful to have you here, that you made your way out of the Darmstadt University of Applied Sciences and just into the civil society of the City of Science, Darmstadt. Feel welcome and feel at home, because as a close cooperation partner of Hochschule Darmstadt, we are part of a community that strives for knowledge, for exchange, and for debate. We've been involved in a dialogue between science and practice since 1988. Most Honorable President Arndt Steinmetz and Honorable Vice President Nicole Sänger know this, and so we are particularly pleased that this meeting and this panel can take place here with us today. We've been cultivating intensive cooperations and collaborations for many years in areas with Hochschule Darmstadt, such as architecture, urban planning, environmental sciences, social work, communication sciences, and economics. Professors of the Hochschule Darmstadt are members of our boards, as well as I'm allowed to be a member of the advisory board of the Doctoral Center for Sustainability Sciences. So we see each other and support each other. What benefits do we expect from the ability to cooperate beyond national and international connections and beyond traditional research funding and scientific cooperation? Perhaps these coalitions will open further windows into the world of research, teaching, and exchange. And I would like to explore this briefly and outline three perspectives or three pluses based on our experiences between social sciences and practice. The Schader Foundation is a private foundation and has always been located right between science, society, and the city. Our founder, Alois Schader, is a graduate of the predecessor institution of the Hochschule Darmstadt, the Hessische Staatsbauschule, as well as the Technical University of Darmstadt. He sends you all warm greetings and asks for your understanding that at almost 96 years old, he can no longer attend every appointment every evening here in the forum. Alois Schader studied civil engineering and began working as a consulting engineer at an early age, with undoubtedly some commercial success. But despite the high quality of the work, it became increasingly clear to him that there was a lack of exchange between science and society in crucial areas. You can't just build well, you have to know how society wants to live. And the other way around, politicians need to hear what is technically possible and advisable in order to be able to make good decisions. This simple insight has become significantly more important under the climate crisis in the last 20 years. Alois Schader founded this foundation at the age of 60 and commissioned it to promote a dialogue between social sciences and practice. So everything we do needs to involve multiple perspectives and multiple sectors. Never without science and never without practice. Above all, never without the respect and necessity of each other. By the way, the first plus has already happened when you came in here. You're there. Or to put it in another way, the first plus is the never-ending motivation to bring people into contact, into conversation, into encounters. The ancient forum was the place of exchange on an intellectual, civic, artistic, and economic level. And the Schader Forum wants to live up this ideal. And the entire Schader campus, in a miniature, opens up opportunities for encounters. After our panel, we will have the opportunity to toast the EUt Plus together in the garden of Haus Schader, just opposite. This is also an important part of the exchange, and of course, testing some regional wine is also a very important part of these encounters. The second plus consists of what German higher education policy calls the third mission, opening university to civil society. Transfer must not be a monodirectional action, a habitus of giving and of sharing of higher knowledge of science towards society, but we are also driven by the ideal of transformative research that involves actors beyond academia and takes social sectors seriously in terms of their own needs and possibilities. Darmstadt University of Applied Sciences has been a highly valued partner of ours for years, and we are really grateful to be able to currently work together on 2 long-term collaborative projects, in addition to around a dozen projects and events every year. One of these long-term projects is dedicated to the governance of building innovation in small and medium-sized cities here in Hessen. How do these smaller communities come up with good concepts for developing their building stock in a socially appropriate but also ecologically responsible manner under the difficult financial conditions? A second long-term project are the Darmstadt Days of Transformation. My colleague, Gösta Gantner, is in charge here, who also prepared this evening for us. Thank you so much, Gösta. In one condensed week per year, complex issues of social ecological transformation are addressed in around 15 events with very different groups. That can be small and confidential fireside chats under Chatham House rules or public lectures in this room with over 200 guests. Of course, workshops, simulation games, always with the participation of science, but in this case, especially with small and medium-sized companies, because we also cooperate not only with Hochschule Darmstadt, but also with the Darmstadt Chamber of Commerce. You're all very welcome. Great that you made it, and there is enough place for you left, I think. The third big plus, we can and we must learn and practice, and I think we must really enjoy being able to talk freely to each other, to vote freely in Europe and live together democratically in Europe. In most countries, science is under pressure from extremist parties. Simple solutions are popular. Complex and scientific questions are unpopular. The fact that science requires time, resources, and openness does not sink into every political head. It is so important to know and experience that we are European allies in the pursuit of knowledge, of freedom and democracy, diversity and equal opportunities. I'm convinced that the emerging European University EUt Plus will become a lighthouse of shared science. The opportunities to develop projects together, the fantastic prospect for students to move between campus here and there, like from one side of the street to the other side. Hopefully you all think of these opportunities and what an impressive project you are doing before you go to sleep tonight, and be proud of what you're doing. And allow yourself a few moments of joy and pride, despite all the demanding work. And when things get difficult in the meantime, think about what the opposite of these goals would be. By then, we should all know that it's worth fighting for this common European idea, even in science and university. Last but not least, let's not forget to take the right pictures. I don't primarily mean selfies from conference dinners, although those can be nice memories. But we believe that we need to open our eyes to those who are left behind or are hindered in their development, even in science. A few decades ago, the barriers and resistance for women in science were much more significant, but of course, they still are in many places. If you ask an artificial intelligence to generate a scientific person, you will be shown someone who looks something like me. Older, white, preferable with a few extra pounds on the hips. I would love that AI could manage this with the extra pounds a little bit better. But seriously, we are surrounded here in this room, we are surrounded by women who have not been recognized as they should have been in their scientific careers. You can see their pictures in the rear. Unfortunately, I don't have the time to explain to you these 17 impressive images, which are not photographs, but artificial images created by the photographer Gesine Born using AI. The first graduate in Darmstadt is there, Jovanka Boncic-Katarinic, first engineer in Germany. Or Lise Meitner, who was nominated for the Nobel Prize 48 times and never received it, and she can't even be seen in the Hollywood movie Oppenheimer, as well as she was a premium figure in this story. We call this exhibition Missed Images, versäumte Bilder. Let us see our next academic generation through these 17 female scientists, and be careful not to stand in their way in society and in science. Then perhaps we will miss fewer pictures, and that will be another plus. Thank you for your attention. We look forward for being your hosts and wish us all an inspiring evening here at Schader Campus.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen and colleagues. I'd like to thank the Schreider Foundation for hosting us this evening and to thank the people in HDA for organizing the event. It is an extraordinary exhibition, and I just advise you to have a look at it. There's one or two things which really struck me as I went around, which was the relationship between how the artist has used prompts, so descriptions of original photographs, which are then put into Midjourney to create the photographs. So there's a very interesting relationship between what the original photograph was and what Midjourney does in itself. It's great. Okay, so my role, as just for 1 or 2 minutes, is just to give a little bit of context to what we're doing this evening. So the European University of Technology, as part of a supplementary project, a SWAFS project, put in place a European think tank. So the European think tank is called the EUt Ideas Institute, and I'm the director of the institute at the moment. But the idea of the think tank is to look at questions which are related to technology and society, but also with a mission to try and develop methodologies to impact policy at a local level, national level, and at a European level. So far we've hosted a number of events and think tanks. We had, in Sofia, we had a think tank on AI and ethics. We also had a similar event on AI and technology in Riga. Then in Dublin, we had a think tank on European values. And last week in Riga, there was another event around European values. So it's a series of events, and that's why we're here this evening with HDA. But part of that role of a think tank or an ideas institute is actually to prompt discussions within the context of EUt and to, in one way, unpack some of the mission statements that we've put forward. What do we mean by thinking human first? What do we mean by European values empowering technology? So part of our mission and vision for the European University of Technology needs in one way to be unpacked by the academic community and by discussion itself. And part of that is to look at the impact of technology on society, so impacts which are, I would argue, both positive and negative. And part of the impact of technology in itself is related to the growth of technologies, which is linked to innovation and economic growth, but also has had a negative impact in terms of some of the impacts on the planet itself in terms of climate change. So we have a tension between technological innovation and the impact of innovation on society. So that's kind of the context for our discussion this evening. So I'm going to hand over to Nicole, who's going to be the chair of the panel. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Also good evening from my side and from HDA, who has been organizing this panel discussion. And for this, I mean, the introduction was giving already. is our impact on society, within society, and we have chosen today the subject of sustainability. So what is our green transition of our universities, of all of us, so EUt Plus, and also what we have as challenges and strategies for integrating into society. And I'm not going to talk very long. I'm going to moderate this panel discussion, and I would like to ask the people who are discussing with me to come upstairs, and so yes, you can already come, 1, 2, 3, 4, and I will introduce very briefly these 5 panelists that are discussing with me. I will start with obviously the youngest one, which is Lina Achilles, who is our student representative, and she was giving us the student perspective on integration of sustainability into education, and she's also working for our Green Office at HDA, looking at how students can be involved into sustainable acting. Then we have, next to her sits Lou Grimal. Lou is coordinating, and she has the competencies to do that for our European Sustainability Science work, how it's called, a research group, it's the official way to call it. And she is driving sustainability on a very focused and research-wise approach. And she's coming back just today from the first meeting of the European Sustainability Science Lab that we were holding in Dieburg. And I'm very happy to see what you did today. I was there only this morning and heard the first lecture, and I don't know what kind of discussions you're really heading to. So, and the next one is Marlene Vasquez, who also attended the Sustainability Science Lab this morning, and she's bringing into our discussion the teaching and the research vision for best practices and innovative approaches into academia. And I got to know her when she was looking for someone to look for the Bachelor for Sustainability, Sustainable Development, heading for a study program here at EUt Plus. Then we have Andreas. Andreas is, for me, the first person that I got to know outside HDA who was heading a Green Office at CUT. And he's very well discussing these issues with us, and I'm very happy that you're here to discuss these things today with us and seeing how EUt Plus Green Office operates and what the thoughts are here. And last but not least, Noel, I don't have to introduce yourself because you already did that. Noel is from the Technical University in Dublin, heading the European Culture and Technology Lab, which is our first research institute. And he said already what he's doing here. The Ideas Institute is his idea and his aim to get all of us to discuss things. Okay, and with this I will start. I think most of you know me. My name is Nicole Sanger. I'm here at HDA, and I'm happy to host you all here. I'm the Vice President for Research, Transfer and Sustainable Development. And I'm also Professor for Civil Engineering, so the water sciences, and that's why I'm adapted very much to the topic of sustainability. So, I will start with my first question here. Lina, how can we foster green transition through education? What would you need as students to get more integrated into these thoughts and thinking?
Thank you. I think the necessary first step is to give us a voice. So let us be part of important discussions and decisions. So thank you for having me tonight. I think the most important thing is to be able to evoke enthusiasm on the topic of sustainability in students. And how can we achieve that? Well, I've got some ideas. Maybe through projects with a hands-on approach. When I think back on my time as a student, I enjoyed the projects where I was able to do something myself the most, be it collecting my own data in the field or in the lab, for example, by sorting the uni's waste while wearing a full body safety suit in midsummer, or visiting local composting and waste sorting plants. And my experiences as part of the Green Office team support this opinion. For example, we just finished a project during which students from various study projects were tasked with designing a self-sufficient irrigation system for planting pots that, as I am happy to announce, are going to be added to our campus in the near future. And this wasn't some kind of big projects with lots of fanfare, but a lot of the students came to me afterwards and said that this project was special to them. Why? Because their ideas were finally actually going to had a chance of being realized and seen. And instead of gathering dust in someone's drawer. And so that's my first idea, hands-on approach. Then I think a solution-based approach is a great idea. Confronting us students with a specific problem and then giving us the tools to solve it ourselves. And then, last but not least, making education on sustainability fun. How so? By not only using basic lectures, but maybe cooperating with student groups, with clubs, by coming up with special events and campaigns, and by organizing workshops, for example. That's what we try as the Green Office.
Thanks a lot. When I look at these ideas, Andreas, do you have the same ideas of introducing sustainability to your students, to your staff, with projects, hands-on projects?
Thank you very much for the passover. Thank you very much, Lina, because what I had in mind to share with you is sustainability in the university. It comes from a lot of pillars, and the most important one, at least what I can see, is from students. And you helped me a lot right now, because you just expressed to people here that students are able and they're willing to support this, but also higher management and, of course, administration and academics. The combination of these three pillars is what makes sustainability to our universities, to EUt Plus, could be feasible. But also, these three things need a coordination entity, and this is what we're trying to achieve between us, between the 9 universities right now, is to create this baseline, which is the Green Office. Not everybody have one. Everybody has an idea. Some universities have a lot of experience, some universities don't have, but we will find the correct solution. As you said, you need solutions. And at some point, we will need the support of students. And I've seen in other universities, unfortunately outside the EUt Plus, how students are behaving for sustainability, and it's quite amazing. The universities do not do a lot. The students just push for everything is needed, which is actually my vision at some point, is because we're talking about the future, so the future is all about you. And it's our, as Green Office, is our obligation to listen to you. Not all the times, but at least guide you 90% because we need to discuss some parts along the way. Yes, Green Office could be a focal point for everybody, even for education, higher management, students, etc. Thank you.
Thank you. And when I now ask Marlene about the staff, how can we achieve that the study programs have more sustainability aspects, topics, areas in them?
Well, one of the main things is that we need to, and when I say we, I'm talking about academics, need to leave their comfort zone. So when we want to address issues like sustainability, we need to understand that we need to work interdisciplinary, learn from other sectors, and address complex problems. So first, I think academics need that, and I think it is a way to immediately bring students into real life scenarios. So when they go out, when they leave the university, when they finish their courses, it's issues like sustainability that will have to deal in their everyday life. So I think it's a very, very good opportunity to prepare our students for what they will find out there. And I would like to see more the word of sustainability in the curriculum, you know, in different courses as part of the courses, but a part of that, also see it as extracurricular activities. So a lot of learning is being done at the university, not within the framework of specific courses, but in the framework of projects, in the framework of exchanges of students, of even projects that can be built within the EUt Alliance. And I think that you, especially students as you started describing, appreciate more when they're not only learning for the environment, but in the environment. So creating all these nice moments of engagement, or, you know, visiting a place that you could not have done it within, you know, your specific expertise, create these nice opportunities. And I believe a lot in this unconstructed ways of doing education, because this can have an impact, and I have seen it also, and I have tested it with our students as well, that you know, the moment you leave the room, the moment that you do a project, the moment they go out, they talk to others, they try to impact other societal groups, that moment they understand, oh, this is very interesting, that this is very nice, I will remember this, and this makes them want to stay in the field more and understand how real complex problems are, like the ones we want to address when we want to address sustainability issues. So yeah, we need to leave our comfort zone and yeah, do more things as academics to achieve that.
So Lou, from the research perspective, interdisciplinarity came up in with all of you. So what is your idea of getting sustainability into research, looking at sustainability sciences?
Yes, so the added value to have the European Sustainability Science Lab for EUt Plus, to me, is to have a dedicated platform where scientists specialized on this area can really meet and discuss. So, for example, today that was the case. We asked experts from outside EUt Plus to bring their expertise on sustainability science to our colleagues internally to EUt Plus. I think that's one of the added value of the Sustainability Science Lab. And just for example, one of the speaker who opened the seminar today was a reviewer of the IPCC report of 2014. So it's really top researchers who came today. So I think that was an achievement to really bring the scientists of EUt Plus to deep discussions on those topics. For me also, the Sustainability Science Lab is a place where we can discuss some fundamental frameworks. When we talk about sustainability, sometimes we miss those frameworks, like what is sustainability? Is it weak or strong sustainability? Are we talking about rebound effects? How do we calculate impacts from direct, indirect structuring impacts? And for me, the Sustainability Science Lab is a way to engage researchers in those discussions and to improve the quality of our knowledge on those topics, to then accompany EUt+. So I hope we can provide to the Green Office some frameworks that already exist and to measure our environmental impacts as a European alliance, as universities, but also as an alliance. And on the perspective on education for sustainability, I was really pleased by your answer because it really fits the state of the art on this question. It's been 10 years that scientists on the topic say that we need to have students practical work for students on really specific topics. So that's basically what you've said. And there is also a really efficient framework of competencies for sustainability that exists since 2011. And I really think that we should take this framework to engage more, to manage to change a bit our curricula to make sure that none of those competencies are missing in our curricula. And this framework is adaptable to entrepreneurship, but also engineering. I think we all have engineering-related curricula in our universities. So that could be, I think, one of the added value of our lab on this question.
Thank you, Lou. And yeah, the next one is, well, when you hear that on sustainability, how can you support that when you look at digital transformation and also technology transformation, what you've been thinking of at the European Culture and Technology Lab? How can we intertwine these ideas?
There's a few things. First of all, I think there's a kind of recognition that we do need to address these issues in a different way. So some of that's coming from the students. There's very good examples in Paris Agrotech, where the students stood up and said, you know, basically we don't want our degree, we want you to change the curriculum. There's kind of some radical movements around how to change engineering curriculum coming from the students themselves. The second thing is to recognize that we do need to address these issues in a kind of transdisciplinary, interdisciplinary way. And the reason why is they're referred to as wicked problems. These are problems which are outside one discipline. So in order to meet the challenges of a just transition to combat questions of climate change, we need to be able to think across the different disciplines. Within that, elsewhere, and I can repeat the argument, I remember the first presentation I gave here in HDA, I think it was in 2019 actually, which was on the question of the Anthropocene and the Anthropocene. And what I was trying to do that day was to argue that there's a relationship between entropic processes of the development of technologies and the impact on the planet, which is called the Anthropocene. But the argument is to say that we have to rethink what technology is. And part of the mission statement of EUt Plus was to think human first. And part of that discussion was to say we have to understand that technology is not simply an instrument. It's actually a part of becoming human takes place in and through technologies. So suddenly when we ask the question around how do we have new technologies which are going to enable green transition, we have to understand that those technologies are actually part of us, they're not separate to us. Okay. So if we understand that technology is not simply an instrument but part of who we are, part of becoming human, then the question about new technologies has to be asked in a different way. So the way that I explain that is we have a biosphere that we recognize, and we have something called biodiversity. We also have something which is a technosphere. We're surrounded by an environment of technology. So what we need to think through are questions of technodiversity. Can we have new forms of technologies which are functioning in a different way, which are maybe less extractivist, less about taking monetizing values but doing other things. And that's part of the process of what we could think of within a European technological university about what are the new technologies that we should have. I can go on, but so the work that we've been doing in ECT Lab, we've been looking at the question of technology and culture, and for me it was really important that those two words were in the title, because that's a recognition that technology is not something which falls out of the sky, but technology is something which takes place within a context, which is a cultural context also. So we've had projects around ethics and ecology, which we now have developed a module which is available for staff training and for students, which is on the question of ethics and ecology. We have a project on aesthetics of care, so understanding care as an ecological process also, care for the self, care for the other, and care for the planet. And we have a Marie Curie project called Episteme, which is also looking at the question of epistemology and care. Yeah.
Thank you. So when I look at this vision, how to implement that, I mean, we need to implement this in our curriculum to get it really to our students, and we have over 100,000 students of those. Yeah. So how can we do that? Do you have a vision? How can we involve everyone from student projects to teaching modules? How can we get our staff involved? How can we get the students involved?
Yeah, I think, and I'm going to be a bit provocative, I think what we need sometimes is something a little bit more radical, So we had a discussion this afternoon about, instead of using the question of green transition or digital transition, digital transformation, maybe we should use a different term, which is bifurcation. So to bifurcate is a way of radically changing direction. It comes from Poincaré, we were told earlier on, actually comes from complex physics also, where bifurcation is a sudden change of direction within a metastable structure. And maybe that's a way to think it through, is that sometimes we do need to make that radical shift first. And that, for me, that's a value judgment. We have to make a judgment together as a value judgment and say we are invested in making this change. Yeah.
So transition is too soft and takes too long.
Well, yeah, there's the argument.
Isn't it?
Yeah, well,
I mean, bifurcation is something that is happening right now.
Yeah, but we could argue about it, because when we use the word transition, okay, we're accepting that the starting point is the place that we're going to start from, and that we have an agreed point from which we're going to go to. Okay, that's the first thing. Also, transition can be understood temporally and also spatially. So there is a question of trying to shift the question away from an accepted point of departure. And the reason why I would argue that is, you could say, well, to be quite blunt about it, the reason why we're in the mess we're in is we've all accepted the starting point from which we're in. So then we should maybe shift the question. Yeah. Yeah.
What do you think about that, Lou?
I totally agree with this radicality, because first, I think it was in Romania in 2019, we said, no, we should not think human first, we should think non-human first. And that's why we are in the Anthropocene, that it's because we have think human first. So I totally agree with this radicality, and maybe from the point, so we thought that, I was the first one, I thought that also at that time that EUt Plus was really visionary. And now if I may be a bit provocative, I'm thinking that maybe it's a project that has been thought in terms of management in the 20th century, because can we afford environmentally what we are currently doing? No. Yeah.
No, we can't.
And so that's also a big ethical question for me as a researcher. Can I, every 6 weeks, go fly in another country, in another city, meet so amazing people and have so much fun, but then come back also very quickly to my daily work? And that's a very big question for me, and that's why actually, so I decided not to fly anymore. So it's a big issue for me to go to Limassol again, because I love Cyprus. But it also made me realize that Cartagena is really far. It's 1.5 days of travel. Dublin, then I had to take the boat. I hate that. So I did it, and it's also because I organized myself around that, because I don't have any kids, and my partner can join me on those long trips. But I guess I'm nearly the only one on this situation. Can you, as a father, can you, as a mother, can go abroad on those long trips? I'm not sure. And most of the people who are not here today, it's because they have some children to take care. And most of my colleagues who are not here today at the seminar, it's because they have some kids here and so on. So I'm also thinking this environmental and this radical change that we need, it will be an unfair change. And we need to discuss this. Who can fly? Who cannot? And I'm not sure that my fly worth it. So that's why also it's important that we decide, like, my added value, what is my added value here? Maybe not enough. So just step back. It's a bit like the discussion with the women and men. If a woman can take the place and step back and let someone else, and I mean, you didn't say that, but it was in the conversation of equality between men and women, but I also feel like maybe we can step back sometime and slow down. And that's, for me, yeah, this, when you talk about techno-diversity, this radicality in EUt+, I'm thinking about all of that, but then it means that this event is maybe not possible anymore. And yeah, so, yeah. And I let this to another speaker.
I don't know how I can come over that, but I agree on the radical, but when we talk about something that is radical, it means that you have to either sacrifice or like tear something apart. So I like the idea of transition, because it gives the common understanding or the agreement that we are moving all together to the next step. So this is kind of more inclusive. And yes, I do believe that to change things, we need to change things drastically, but at the same time, we do not really know where we want to go. So it took us almost 2 years to discuss what will be the direction of the environmental, the sustainability laboratory, and we're still not there. And the reason is because we are not learning how to do research inter and transdisciplinary. So the moment you decide that you want to do this type of work, you need to, decide that you will start learning again, because this is not the way we were programmed. We were programmed to produce research manuscripts, to receive grants, and to do science in a specific way. To change that, it also takes time for us. And, okay, a sacrifice, but in a sacrifice of, again, leaving your comfort zone. So in this sense, I feel positive about the EUt Alliance and what we are doing, because I have had the opportunity to meet a lot of persons willing to do that. And this makes me positive of the next things. Of course, things could move quicker, but that we have decided to get on this journey all together, I think this is good. And I have to accept that I will always be coming to the meetings by plane. I do not have other option. I have a lot of things back home, so I cannot travel for 2 weeks to go to a meeting. But at the same time, that means that, okay, at least I will be included in the conversation and in the process. So this is also, a way of making more inclusive environments for all of us that have something to put in the table and in the discussions. I don't know if you want to add
I would like to add a new word to this situation, which is called balanced. Balance. So we can do a lot of things, we can do all the things if we try to figure out what is the balance of that. For example, we are 9 universities at the Green Office. As I said before, some of them are peak, some of them are 0, some of them are 70%, whatever is that. We have to find the balance for that. We cannot follow the ones that very niche, but we cannot stay behind. The balance to that. You said mobility, which is, I was joking to colleagues back at Cyprus University of Technology. I told them at some point we're going to cut traveling, so it will be the end of this situation. But Lou, you said that. But mobility, it's about balance, okay. Maybe right now, EUt Plus cannot live without traveling by plane or trains, etc. But we can find a good solution for that. For example, maybe we can go, just a small example to understand the situation. Maybe we can go for using the plane to go to a country and then use the train, the bus to go to a country and the train. But students can do it a bit differently because they do have a bit more time to spare.
At least when they come for a semester to
yes,
go
exactly.
abroad.
So they can do that.
They can do it by train.
So what I'm trying to say here is it's about balance. Mm-hmm. Why do we have 17 Sustainable Development Goals? It's how do you say it? It's the first steps of how to approach your balance, your sustainability. When you are thinking to do something, you need to, at least those goals, maybe are not the ones that you will follow at the end of the day, but at least they're there to give you this starting point of where you need to go. And those 17 goals are the ones that will guide you to somewhere. It's just a guidance. So I like the word balance.
On this balance thing, I really agree with this. And I would like just to give you an example on the question of mobility, which is happening in Troyes. So there is this alumni association who is funding Erasmus passes for students, because students have the time, but they don't have the money. We have the money, but we don't have the time. So here it's also a great opportunity. So alumni fund, I think they funded 20 Erasmus Pass mobility for students, and it enables students to go abroad by train. So they're happy because they're experiencing something, but also they're decreasing the environmental impact of the university. And I think this example of Troyes could be replicable. I mean, maybe a bit changed because there is a diversity of situations, but I'm pretty sure we can do it in all our universities, because all our universities have alumni who are leading some huge companies who could fund this kind of démarche. And I'll let you the floor in case you want to say something. No?
I think this is a great idea, because I think every university has different ideas of tackling these wicked, smaller or larger problems, and putting all our ideas together. So each university has some, and maybe the other ones can adapt them, and we can spread the same with our curricula. So one has a good idea how to implement sustainable, whatever it is, transition, radical change, bifurcation, however we name it. But I mean, this might be a good idea to see, to go this way and have a vision of what do you think will we have in 5 years or 10 years, EUt Plus as a sustainable think tank.
There's one thing that I like to promote is the idea of a university without conditions. Okay, so this is a text by a French philosopher, Jacques Derrida, and what he argued for was that the university is a place where we can have this conversation without conditions. So The challenge is that we are in contexts which are political, which are local, which are full of conditions. And the ability to think through what a technological university will be in 5 years' time in terms of its relationship to a curriculum, in terms of its mission of new forms of technodiversity, helping a just transition, I think is our ability to think through that as a university without condition. So we need to be able to kind of see a vision of the future where we are successful in the implementation of a vision of a university which is about developing ethical, responsible European citizens who are involved in the development of technologies which are just for society. So that's kind of a vision statement, and that's what I think brought us together in the first place when we began to think about what a European University of Technology would be. That's what the vision was. Yeah, so that's what I would say.
So, and how do we do that? How? I mean, we had heard hands-on projects, students' projects. Are there?
Yeah. Well,
what kind of modules, teaching modules, do you follow to integrate that into your teaching?
Well, I think first of all is to think sometimes we misunderstand what a university is. So a university is a process also. Okay, it's like it's a process and an endpoint, right? So what we're trying to do in one way is to say we need to change radically or transition more quickly into new forms of technological education. And that new form of technological education is implemented through the process of the university itself and not simply through the curriculum. Okay, so it's like when we look at research, what's the activity in terms of transdisciplinarity in research? How is that being managed? When we look at the university as a physical embodiment in the world, how is that being managed? And so it's all of those aspects of the university. You see what I mean? Yeah. So the how is, the answer to that question is kind of multiple because it's at different layers. So I think it's oversimplified when we think, and I don't want to be critical of colleagues, but it's oversimplified when we think of carbon footprint, energy usage, and what we're going to do is ask those questions across the curriculum. That actually, I would say, is misunderstanding what the issue is. Yeah.
Is there anyone who wants to add something?
Can I ask something, Nicole?
Yes, of course.
Thank you. John O'Connor from TU Dublin. I wanted to ask Noel to maybe expand a little bit on this notion of diversification in the technosphere, and particularly in light of the fact that technological development is largely economically driven. So it doesn't lend itself that easily necessarily to diversification. And I mean, I know Bernard Stiegler did some practical experiments in that, but it'd be just interesting to hear some more thinking on that, Noel. Thanks.
Thanks for the question, John. So the concept of technodiversity comes from the work that was done by a French philosopher, Bernard Stiegler, and now at the moment there's a Chinese philosopher, EUt, who's written quite a lot about the concept of technodiversity. So the concept of technodiversity is to say that, that's why there's a parallel with biodiversity, is to recognize that we need to have a multiplicity of forms of technology. And the argument would be that if we take, at the time, the example was given was the French had its own version of the internet and had a Minitel system. So those French people will know what a Minitel is. Everybody has one at home in the attic or in a box somewhere. So the idea was that if you have a technology which is this uniform and placed across all cultures at the same time, what you're doing, in fact, is you're in one way denying the cultural diversity of each locality. Okay, So technodiversity is the idea that we can have other forms of technology which are coming from a local cultural context or locality for that technology. So that's the basic concept. So John mentioned we have had a number of projects. So we have a project in the north of Paris in the Conseil de Saint-Denis, which is a whole region of the north of Paris, where we have been developing something around questions of technodiversity and circular economy and kind of what we call a contributory economy. So we're looking at forms of technology which are being localized in specific contexts. The challenge is the economic one. So you can have, niche technological developments in particular areas, but for them to become economically sustainable, there has to be a change in the economic environment around it for it to be sustainable. So that's why it's linked to the concept of a circular economy or a contributive economy. So the idea is that you contribute back to your local economy. So within the Conseil de Saint-Denis, there is a particular form of accounting being used where people are being paid to use certain forms of localized technologies, but that has local government support. Without the local government support, it doesn't have the economic environment for it to function. So that's part of the challenge. So the question is having forms of localized technologies which are developed within particular cultural contexts, which are then, how do we scale them up? So the question of scale becomes the economic question. Yeah. Yeah.
And talking about diversity, so you talked about the link between culture and nature, the technosphere and the local situation, the milieu, as far as I understood. Yeah. There's also this difference between high tech, low tech, and that could be interesting also for EUt+, because I feel like we are talking a lot about high-tech solutions. We have some labs on nanotechnologies, but maybe the low-tech aspect, which requires way more technology or way more stronger understanding of what is technology, then I think that could be a bit more expanded in our alliance. I wanted to say something else, but I forgot. Okay.
Yeah. So going back to your question, Nicole, then when we started out this fantastic journey together, we were all in COVID and we were on lockdown, and I remember we had a seminar. I think we had about 100 people at it at one point. Yeah, because it was like the main activity of the week was sitting in front of a screen. But at the same time, we did have some really, really interesting discussions about what we meant by think human first, or what we meant by techne. So we had a really good discussion where what we were trying to argue for was that in order for us to have a new vision of what a technology could be for the European University of Technology, was to go back and say, we have different forms of techne. So we do have, and we're in a kind of space here even this evening where we have an exhibition space, which we're in a dialogue space between the natural sciences and the human sciences. So these are all questions where these are also forms of techne. These are also forms of technologies in a particular way. So the question that we were trying to ask at the beginning was that if we can shift the question away from technology, which is simply understood as a kind of an applied instrument, techno-solutionism, if we can shift the conversation and see that, in fact, originally, techne was all forms of mediation in the world. So technology is like glasses, clothes, everything that makes me human is also. So it's kind of that question of caring for technology then is thinking about technologies of the future, which can care for the individual and for society and the planet. So that was the visions that we had at the beginning.
I think exactly, it's the way of thinking. Okay, I would put instead of human first, planet first, so that we understand the boundaries that we have for the environment and also in the social, let's say, environment, and innovate and progress, having that. So my wish for the students leaving the alliance is to have that in them, no matter which is their background, what they will end up doing, that they carry this with them and try to push their work and their efforts into achieving and understanding that.
Is that something we can achieve within the next couple of years, or does that take longer?
I don't think your choice.
Yeah, I think. I think.
We have a choice, but
Yeah.
how fast do we need to be that we can?
We are too late, so
We are
I mean, the
already
sooner
too
the
late,
better.
yeah,
Realistically, it takes so many years. I mean, like we are taking like the first framework about the planetary boundaries to make sure that everyone could understand that we are overshooting all the planetary limits has been released in 29, I think the first one, then 2015. So it's been more than 10 years, 15 years. So yep, I think if we're not acting quickly, then the constraints will make us act quick.
Well, it makes us already act, doesn't it? I mean,
Does it?
when
Does
you-
it?
It does.
Like
When you live in Cyprus and you don't have even water to, use daily, your whole behavior, appreciation of these resources is increased because you just don't have that resources. So the more you, we're discussing about how sensitive environmentally are people that live in cities. And when you have the effects when your health, because we're not talking only about environmental health, but also human health, and when you feel this affected, then you don't have another choice. So it may not be that all the areas, in all the places we act in the same way, but the moment you start understanding and having impact from all these changes in the environment and in the social environment, then you don't have a choice. So I hope that we will not react, but proact, because unfortunately we are, have more and more limitations on the resources that we have available. So we do not have another choice. This is how we see it, and we read about it and understand it.
So when I look at that topic then, when I look at all the mobility maps that have been composed within the last month, years, have they been checked for sustainable development?
Do you want to check?
I don't know, but I mean, when we talk about it, that we need to, we should have done it years ago, but it will be too late to have it in 5 years when we have new accreditations. It needs to be there already, right?
And maybe what we could say that it should not rely on individuals. It should be really something that is pushed for our presidency. We're looking at our president. So it should really be pushed by the people who have the power to make decisions. So we really need your support for this. It should not rely on individuals, otherwise it's really unfair because it's putting all the efforts on individuals. So I think there is a big commitment from our presidencies on this question that have to be made.
Just to add something here, I said before that for sustainability on the university should be from students, higher management, and the rest of the staff. Higher management has a unique power to just, if you're on top and you just promote something, it's for us that work below that, it's much easier to be implemented since we know that already that is approved. But it's much more easier to people to understand what is, even if it's not in a strategic plan, even if it's just a decision, for us it's easier to be implement and also find ideas on that. Maybe just one sentence from higher management or from the presidency of whoever is up there, for us is much more easy because we know the framework to that. And also by having the push of students, then you understand there is no way to go up. If you go up, it's the same. If you go down, it's the same. So there's nothing to do there. You need to just follow the crowd.
Anyone?
Yeah, I would like it. There is institutions, structures dictate behaviors. So I would agree. You know, these are things which have to be embedded within the structure so that people don't have the responsibility. I think it's unfair to say to students that you have the responsibility, but the structures enable it. But one thing I would argue is that sometimes I don't want to say that the term sustainability is overused, but I think when we think of ecology, sometimes it enables to shift the discussion a little bit, so we can think of the ecology of the self. So there's certain responsibilities that I'm going to go back to the planet. So there's an ecology of the self, an ecology of our relationship with the collective, and an ecology of the planet. So we're in 3 different environments at the same time. So when we look at the ecology of the self, that's also about caring for the self and having a kind of ethical, responsible, ecological relationship with the self also. So that's just to put it out there that sometimes when we use that notion of the 3 ecologies can help us think through things slightly differently too. Yeah.
And depending on all these levels that we need to take into consideration, there are different actions that should be done. So in this sense, okay, of course, the push from the students can help into moving things into a specific direction, but also the top, let's say, decisions, for instance, allocation of resources and time for doing this. Because if we want to have in our curriculum, in our way of functioning, more sustainable targets, we need to work on it. So we need to dedicate personnel and time for achieving this. And I think within the framework of the EUt Alliance could be a very, very good opportunity, because we would be exchanging ideas, experiences, and it would not be necessary for each university to go through this, but do it collectively. And I think also what it's being done through the Sustainability Science Lab is also good into that direction, that it's influencing also how we work at the university level as well.
What I found out today, you brought your architect with you, who is looking for restructuring a part of your university campus, and she was sitting in the Green Office meeting. And I was thinking, wow, now it's not the persons that are looking at research, that are looking at study programs, but also looking at what kind of houses we have and how we can make them more sustainable, are sitting in the meetings. And I was really happy about that, because I think when we have reached also the administration of the universities, that makes also a big, big effort. And this is a big step towards integrating the whole university. Anyone else? Do you have the same feeling somehow today at one point? Lou, with you. There's a...
Thank you. I'm Santiago Perez from UTT. So I just had some notes, because we've been talking about diversity, techno-diversity and all of that. And it's just to recognize the position of privilege in which we're in today, like this room specifically. We're talking about universities, we're talking about curricula, we're talking about sustainability. Those things are, I mean, we can understand all the words, the concepts, the things that are behind that, right? But we're not the only ones in society kind of trying to do something, right?
Which is good.
Yeah, that's good. And it's just inclusion, you know, initial speech, men, women, then again, men, women, kids, families. there is a huge range of things happening in between as well that constrain people to participate into these discussions, right? So just to say that if we don't really embrace diversity in a truly way, there is no way that we can have conversations that could be, fruitful in a long term. We can have a discussion here today, really nice event, a think tank, we're with our friends, we're, having fun, we're stimulating our brains, but then, what happens next? Where is that diversity of knowledge? Where is that taking us, right? So just the question for all of you is, how do you embrace that in your positions? How do you embrace that diversity? We're talking about sustainability from a European perspective as well. So how do you embrace that diversity in order to make things more sustainable?
Who would like to start? Okay. Well, first of all, I feel a person of diversity on my own because I was born in Latin America, and it was a big road from Latin America and having an education there to end up in a place like Cyprus, which is something completely different of how I grew up. So I have carried that with me in the whole way, and this has made me, appreciate and exactly try to include more these conversations at different levels. I think that a way of doing this is what we were discussing about trying to have more of a transdisciplinary approach, because the more you try to bring the societal, let's say, aspect into this, the more close you can be into the local needs, the different groups. But of course, at the university, we are in a protected environment. So at the university, unfortunately, not everybody ends up. So we need to find, in the way we do our research, so this is ways of making it more inclusive for all the people that are not at the university for any reason. And yeah, I think this is something that we as a university and as a laboratory need to take it more into consideration to really make sure that the way we do research also has a significant, substantial inclusiveness in its target. Yeah. Because for sure, sustainability has to do with the inclusion of the diversity that is around us.
For me, it's more in the events, scientific events that I co-organize. So because I don't feel diversity for myself, because I'm a white person, kind of in France. So maybe when I was in my IT curricula, engineering curricula, I could feel a bit of being a minority among those male, but that was it. So in the events we organize, we always try to have the same amount of male and female on the topic. Sometimes it's a bit challenging because it's on IT systems. So we are asking twice the same people. So that also shows some structural issues. And for example, for the Sustainability Science Lab seminar of this week, it was a real goal to have equal male and female for every day, and also to have a representative vision of speakers from Europe. At least we started with Europe. With other events that are organized a bit more widely, like not in EUt+, we try to have this 1,000 perspective with people from the so-said developed countries, even if I don't really like this term. I would prefer to talk about majority and minority. So the minority is like the North country, who are, and the majority is more like the rest of the world, who is, So we try to have both aspects in all our events. And as you said, people talking from the ground, not talking about people suffering from disaster, but having the people from disaster that can speak for themselves. So that's quite important. I mean, yeah, anyway, you want to...
Yeah, it's kind of my response is that we try and ensure that we include all notions of care, which includes different forms of diversity in it. As you know, we have a project on aesthetics of care, which is in particular looking at care in a wider sense. So for me, that question of inclusivity and diversity is actually looking at those three ecologies at the same time. So I think that's really important, because sometimes the question of care is also care of the self, you know, and we tend to sometimes skip that one too quickly, I would say. Yeah. I don't know if I answered it, but that's...
Do you want to add something? Or? No? Okay. Then for me, coming from the engineering science, being one of the very few women in my semester studying that, I'm really happy now that when I look in this room, probably there are even more women than men here, which is amazing. What I see is that sustainability is often a female topic, interdisciplinarity as well, which shocks me a little, and I don't know why that is, but that's my impression and how I experience it. And I think we are going to the end of our session here, and I would like to summarize one thing up when we had this on extras. We had a midterm report here in Darmstadt, and the commissioner, in the end, I don't know who was there and who remembers, he said, well, you are not balanced. And we were kind of, okay, what does that mean? And then he said, it's 44 women and 46 men. And we were kind of, okay, we were really, really happy to have so many women and so many men in there. So we thought we were very much balanced, but for him, not at all. So I wasn't sure if this was a joke or if he really meant that. And from his expression in his face, he really meant it. So it was for me very interesting to see this. And I think we are doing a pretty good job with putting people there where they have the expertise. And I'm really glad that we are kind of balanced within EUt+. Okay, so I think we will end this discussion here now. Thank you very much for contributing, all of you, and also to the ones that are asking questions. So, and now we are closing this session, and we will walk over to the Schader House, which is on the other side of the street, and we will have some wine over there. So please come with us and enjoy especially this wonderful building and the garden. And I would like, as long as I'm here and I have the microphone, would like to thank the Schader-Stiftung very much. Thanks a lot, Alexander Gemeinert, and also Gastner, who made this evening possible. And yes, I'm really, really glad that we are part of this society as well. Thank you a lot.